Hi, welcome back to our next video in the series on creating an effective workforce plan. This video is going to deal with steps 5 and 6 in the workforce planning process, which is succession options and emergency cover. So to date, we should have sort of mapped the current org chart. We should have mapped your future org chart, taking into account future impacts of trends and strategies and things you're going to be doing in your business. We then got you to start setting up the workforce planning model by listing positions for both current and future org charts in that model and starting to think about who goes where. We then started putting names against those and starting to map out which people will be in which places, which ones we need to recruit for, a whole heap of stuff. Now we're going to deal with the last two options, which are in sort of inserting succession options and then looking at emergency cover. So let's deal with succession options first. So if we look at succession options, so in this phase, what we do is say, righto, of the people that we in the future that we see moving up. So we've said people like James is going to move from being a receptionist to a logistics clerk. Bob is going to move up from being a supervisor to an operations manager, and Jenny's going to move from being a personal assistant up into being an accounts clerk as well. So what we'd say then is, okay, if in the gap between where we are now and where we want to be in the future, we need to start developing some people in our business to come up and to cover for other people, right? So in this case, we've said, all right, well, Bob would want to be an operations manager. So we want to start training and developing Bob in that space. So let's start engaging him and working with him and to bring him up. Now, Bob, for a whole heap of reasons, the big four, death, disease, disaster, and divorce, could decide to move on from our business. So it's probably worthwhile that we start to train John as well, even for a future role. So we could start to build John and build his skills as well. Even if it's just a cover for Bob when he goes on holidays as operations manager, but also, to future-proof our business. The same thing with James and Jenny. What are our options there for bringing them through? And let's think about what training and development they'll need, and we'll cover that in a later video. But if you think about it, then they're the sort of succession options that we've got in the business. Now, worthwhile just thinking about who else may would we need, could we have to develop to cover off different positions if necessary. So, for argument's sake, you might think, okay, well, Frank the forklift officer, maybe we should be doing a bit of training and development with him in terms of being logistics clerk as well, just so we've got some coverage. So think about some of the succession options and plug them into your plan. So at least you've worked out who in your business must you really focus development on to grow them into the positions that you may want for the future, and to cover off on other positions. So the next step is to look at emergency cover. And this is an area that I guess most businesses don't spend much time doing because they just assume that they'll be able to cover. But it's worthwhile putting a bit of thought into it, particularly understanding where some of your risk points are in your business. Now, this is if somebody gets run over by a bus tomorrow scenario, not if they've got the flu and are off work for 2 or 3 days. You still may need that person to cover, but I'm talking about a longer term emergency. So what we do is look at the current positions. So this is a current emergency cover, and we go down and say, if somebody got run over by a bus, who's the logical person to take over and fill that position for us? Now, the challenge is that you don't want people to step back. You want people to either step across or step up. And of course, then we also need to have people to cover for those people as well. So we might need to, the more senior people, we may need to actually have a couple of people move around in order to cover off from somebody. Now, the reason why you don't want people to step back is because that really assumes that that they're not doing anything in their current job and they can actually quickly step in and take up another position. Now, you might be able to do that for a short period of time, but you can't do it for a long period of time without having a negative impact on the business. And the challenge is, the more senior that person is, the harder it is, and the bigger impact it has on your business moving forward. For example, if Julie, our logistics officer, gets taken ill, then maybe Fred could come back and cover for her, but in reality that assumes that Fred's not doing anything as general manager, and you really don't want your general manager stepping back down to be the logistics officer. It's much better if we could have somebody either step sideways, so one of the supervisors, or somebody steps sideways into that position. So we need to think about who that emergency cover is, and then you may need to then put them into that succession program, so we're actually doing some development, some training, so that they can cover. So think about your emergency covers. Some will just be able to contract out, but others you'll need to think very carefully about who is going to be in that position. You can then start to say, okay, so if we're going to develop and grow these people, and there's going to be the emergency cover for different jobs here and there, then how do we give those people experience, real world experience in that job? And sometimes things like holiday cover and those sorts of things are great ways to do that, to get them to sit in the seat for 2 or 3 weeks while somebody goes on leave and actually act as if they're in that position. Gives people a real understanding of what's required in the job, because the comment I often find is when people step up into another job is they go, gee, I didn't realise there was so much involved in this. So everybody just sees from the outside what people do. They often don't see the reality of what they do, and it's great to have them step in and sit in that position for a while and operate in it. So think about how you can give your emergency cover people some experience, and the same with your succession people. So think about succession and emergency, in some ways, making sure that your emergency people have enough skills to cover off, and that they're up to date with some of those skills and qualifications they may need to have, and think about how that fits into your development program, which is really succession 1 and succession 2 options. We're starting to think about who the people are, and we'll talk more about training, needs analysis and stuff in a little minute. Alright, so step 5 and step 6, we're just really looking at your succession options and your emergency options, and thinking about, righto, who do we need to develop and who do we need to grow, and then what's our strategy for covering for people if for some unforeseen reason they're unable to do their job for an extended period of time. Alright, we'll now move on to analysing the model. So basically the model's complete at this point, and you will need to start thinking about, okay, where are some of the gaps and what does this mean for our business? But we'll discuss that in the next video. Thanks.